Hi, everybody. It's good to be here. I want to talk about the creation of the perception of scarcity where nothing exists. When I was the dean at the University of Virginia, I had the privilege of living in Pavilion 9, the building on the lower left, on Jefferson's lawn. This, by the way, is where we had the neo-Nazis and white supremacists march with torches chanting in August. And having dinner in that house, I could invite people. I invited the head of an investment bank, and I said, Mr. Jefferson would ask, what do you know about the world that we don't know because we don't do what you do? And he said, I don't know what you're asking. I said, well, what's the secret of Wall Street? He said, oh, Bill, that's so easy. It's the creation of the perception of scarcity where none exists. The creation of the perception of scarcity where none exists. This is getting us to move and to think we're going to miss out. Scarcity. But what would happen if we had a perception of scarcity where nothing existed? So I was asked by the financial institutions in the Netherlands to do a talk on circular economy, because I was called the father of the circular economy at Davos, and they heard that, and they said, will you come and talk to us? So I looked simply at the financial markets, and without knowing much about economics, I took the GDP of the world and drew a circle, and I took the GDP measurements and studied them in terms of being 1/3 goods, 1/3 value-added goods, and 1/3 services. And then I measured the entire size of the financial markets. And this is what we found. 8% of the world is actually sort of real. 92% of the financial markets are derivatives, arbitrage, trading, not based on any assets. Imagine this. So then I took the GDP and I cut it into assets and debt. And then I put on the derivatives on the last column. The creation of the perception of scarcity where nothing exists. This has led us to the point there are 3 individuals in the United States who have wealth equal to 1/2 of the US population. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and Jeff Bezos have the wealth of 150 million Americans. Equal. Imagine. 8 individuals in the world have wealth equal to 1/2 of the human population. 3.5 billion people. 8 individuals. So as we talk about the circular economy, as we talk about our work, and how do we grow our business, and how do we grow to help people around the world, we better get back to fundamentals, because we have to go to our values now, not just value. This isn't the notion of statistical significance. This is the notion of values and meaning. This is not about smart, it's about wise. It is not about artificial intelligence, it's about natural intelligence. And if we look at the world and say, well, where do we come from? So we can understand where we might go. Let's go back to fundamentals. The Earth is powered by the sun, basically. And we have a rock in space with a little water, a dead rock in space. And all of a sudden, we get the sun combining with that dead rock and water, carbon from the atmosphere, and we get soil. And that is the beginning of us. And we need humility, and it's very clear because the words human, humus, and humility all come from the same root. To be humble is to be grounded. So if we start to realize then that the world is physics, chemistry, and biology coming together, and we represent biology, biology actually represents negative entropy. You burn the log, it scatters. The law of physics, entropy. But the log itself is negative entropy. Life is the order out of chaos that is us. So if we look at the world and say, how do we power it? Well, what if we say, let's power it with ancient fossils? The current fossil reserves on the planet are very large. If we burn some small fraction of it, we are toast. So How can the Standard & Poor's 500 index represent that the asset base of most of the American public companies, 40% of it is in fossil reserves? And if we burn a tiny bit of it, we're gone. These are assets that have to get stranded, and we have to recognize that. And we have to think about how we're going to use these fossil reserves for useful purposes. Probably synthetic chemistries, probably a new kind of carbon economy that might involve solids and graphene and some other things to do. But we can't burn it anymore. So that's why I wrote the paper in Nature, and I said we should call the carbon fugitive, durable, living. This idea that carbon negative is a positive is kind of crazy. You're telling an 8-year-old that a double negative is a positive, they're going to wonder what we're doing. So let's get it simple. So what we do is we look at the world as having life cycles of products of consumption that can actually be consumed, and they go back to soil safely. We call them biological nutrients. And we have technical nutrition we've developed in the last 5,000 years where we start banging on things and we make stuff, and those should be seen as services. And when we first proposed that a washing machine be a service or lighting be a service, and that the indium and the gallium could still belong to the manufacturers, the rubber, the glass, the steel could be put into circular economies, we were accused of being communists because we didn't believe in ownership, really. And now we see these things as the services that they are, and we can imagine they become perpetual. So let's not contaminate the biosphere with technology. Let's not contaminate technology with biology. Let's keep these two separate. But let's also imagine that because we have to grow GDP, of course we do, let us think of goods and services, of course, but let us also think of goods as services. And notice that the word we use is goods, not bads. Right now we have a lot of bads. And it's important to think first about material human health and ecological health. So when we do cradle-to-cradle work, we have 5 criteria. Human ecological health is first. And the reason is circular economy comes second for us. And the reason is if you circulate poison over and over again, you are worse. So a circular economy of bads is not a good thing. It's a worse thing. So circular economy is not a good. What is good? Healthy, safe, shared, generous is good. When we look at the concept of circular economy, I had the privilege of seeing this chart put up by the Dutch banks where they said, this is what we've seen. It starts here. Look at this. Cradle to Cradle was published in China in 2005 as the design of the circular economy. China's 12th five-year plan was circular economy, promote it. 13th, the one they're in now, is implement the circular economy. This is very exciting. And it goes all the way back to 1999 with Deng Xiaoping's daughter coming out of the Earth Summit. We started to think about how to put these things into effect. The Chinese now have very vigorous plans on this. It's very hard to do, but they're underway. It's exciting that at the World Economic Forum, where I've just come back, it's my 17th year, if you can imagine, I was told that I'm part of a special club because it's for CEOs and heads of state, and there aren't that many that stay in office for 17 years. So when you think about it, the circular economy is now a fundamental feature, thanks to people like Ellen MacArthur here, who have brought this to the attention of the world's economic leaders. And the dimensions are being put to it. This is the European dimensions that McKinsey and Ellen MacArthur are working on. We've got Accenture looking at global numbers of what this means and the value of the circular economy. But just remember those derivatives. Just remember this $4 trillion and put it in that picture. This is not enough. We need to realign our values around value. We have to understand that we're here to make more goods and less bads. Our idea is to create a celebration of abundance of goods and services and goods as services so that we can use them over and over again and expand. And we have to be generous with each other. And we move the fundamental question from how much can I get for how little I give, the current question of modern commerce, to how much can we give for all that we get. This is about all of us. And so it becomes a world of abundance and sharing. And so that's why I translated this into the 5 goods, so I can explain it to children. Because children understand this. Good materials, good economy, good energy, good water, and good lives. Good materials are safe and healthy in biological and technical systems. Good economies are circular, they're sharing, and they're shared. Good energy is clean and renewable. This is not complicated. A child understands that good water is clean, but it's also available every single day. It is a human right. And good lives are what we're here to produce for our children in a world that they can celebrate. So there it is. So if you do these 5 things every day, guess what happens? We have found that in our design work, you turn out to achieve all 17 Sustainable Development Goals at once. Thank you.